Hey y'all, this is Cliff with the Dusty Cliffs, and today I want to talk about the importance of learning a tradable skill. So I'm going to get some stuff set up here to show you, and we'll be right back. Hold on. I'm going to start off real quick just showing you some things that I've made, tell you kind of why I've made them and what my interest was and what my thought process was. So here I got this little table set up with some things on it. This is just a little pancake style holster I made for a little Ruger EC9S I've done videos on. Little skinning knife that I made with some micarta and a saw blade with a little leather sheath. Another knife that I made out of this one's out of a file with some walnut for the scales or the grips. I needed a cover for my hatchet, so I made that just out of leather, just something to cover that up. Now, like this knife here, I made this because I wanted something to skin and clean processed deer with. So I kind of looked up this design, drew it out, cut it out. This one was one of the first knives I ever made, and I was just trying to learn how to make knives, and this is an old file that I cut down. So this wasn't for any particular reason other than learning how to do it. I made this little leather case to hold my Leatherman because I didn't like the Velcro nylon case. So this is just a slide through on the belt loop. I made this probably 3 or 4 years ago. This is tooling leather. This stuff is really held up well. Alright, I went through a spell for a while where I wanted to learn how to do things with paracord because I saw how much like the paracord bracelets, like these little bracelets, were going for in the store. And I found out I could buy 100 feet of that for $10. And I could basically make 10 of these. And of course I made them in different colors and things, and I know that they're kind of a rednecky thing, but you know, I've got 10 feet of paracord in each one of these bracelets if I needed to take that apart and use it for something. Oh, so I made a rifle sling out of paracord. Made this little shell holster for my little single shot 20 gauge. And I made this hip quiver, this leather hip quiver, just with a piece of leather, some leather lacing, and a little piece of plywood with some tacks here, made antique looking tacks like you use on old furniture and stuff. But I'm just showing you all that to say this. You know, there was a time in history where the blacksmith was one of the most important people in town because he had the skill and the tools to do things they needed done, whether it's fixing wagon wheels or making knives and forks and things like that. So blacksmith was very important, but that was because he had a tradable skill. So I believe that we could possibly, I'm not saying we're going to, this is all hypothetical, but we could get to a point in time to where you need to have a skill that you can trade for things. So if you can work with leather, or if you can make knives, or if you can even make things out of paracord, you might be able to trade that for other things that you would be needing. I know that kind of sounds crazy to us right now with the age of eBay and Amazon. You can just order things and have it delivered within a couple days. But when it really comes down to it, I believe that having some skills to use your hands and in work, we have lost sight of that. People have lost the love for that, for one thing. People who do it now, they do it for a hobby. But I believe it can be more important than that. If you learn a skill that you can trade for other things, I believe that it might come out really beneficial later on. So just like being able to make a knife like this. This knife right now isn't worth 5 cents to somebody. To me, you know, I put some work into it, so it's worth something to me. But if the time ever came to where somebody needed a knife, and say they had some leather that I wanted to do some repairs with, or if they even had some 22 ammo that I needed, they might need a good knife. So me having this, knowing how to make this, might help me in the long run. And I guess that comes from my mentality. I was raised up, my whole family was traders. We traded all the time. I still trade to this day. Most of the stuff that I have, I've traded for. And my wife always yells at me anytime I say I'm going to trade something, because she remembers what I paid for it. To me, that if I'm going to trade something that I have for something that I want, the financial worth of this versus that seldom ever even figures into it. Because if I no longer want this, or if I no longer need this, but somebody else has something I want or need, I'm probably going to do some trading. Now, my wife don't watch my videos, so she ain't going to know I'm saying this, but most of the time I just lie to her and tell her that, oh yeah, that's worth just as much as this. But that's just because I'm afraid of her. Not really you know. So, all the time I spend out here in my garage and tinkering around with things, in the long run, being a tinkerer, or even something like this right here, people kind of laughed at it because it's kind of cheesy, but just that little wrap right there to hold a couple shells on this little single shot squirrel gun. This is my favorite squirrel gun. Someday somebody might need something like that made, and it's not that hard, but some people are afraid to tackle things like that, or maybe they don't have time to do it, and they would rather just trade you something that you want for something like that. This little hip quiver. Now right now I'm just using this mainly to hold all my extra arrows and stuff. You can see I've probably got like 10 or 15 arrows in there. But right now this is just a wall hanger. It's not really worth anything, but the time could come where somebody would need something like this, and if I know how to make this and they have something I want, maybe do some trading. So I don't know. I'm not good at these talky videos where I'm trying to lecture, because that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is, in any scenario that you can think of, the people who are going to be better off are the people that can have a skill or something to offer to other people. So it might come back to, right now, what if our computers were shut down, the TV was shut off, your phones weren't working? It might come down to using the two-way radios, like the little Ozark Trail ones I did a video on. It might come down to doing your own repair work. So I'm thinking about doing a series of videos kind of like this on my thoughts and what I think. And I'm not saying any of this is going to happen, but I'm not saying that it's not going to happen either. So I'm just saying, learn a tradable skill. And right now, I think is the perfect time to do it. There's all kinds of YouTube videos on how to do all this stuff. A lot of this stuff is just, I buy most of my leather off of an Amish guy who does leather work. I go buy his scraps. So I get it at a pretty cheap price, and I don't need a whole side of a cow. A lot of times I just need, a piece like this. He sells me for like $7-8. And actually, the piece I got for that, I had enough left over to do this. So I've got less than $10 in these two things right here, that leather cover for my hatchet and this little side quiver. But you never know when things like that can come in handy, or just the skill to do those things can come in handy. Learning how to make holsters. These little pancake holsters are not super tough to make. Takes a little bit of effort, but they're not that bad, and they work really well. Actually, I'm carrying the gun I think that I made that for. So this is for that little Ruger EC9S. And I don't know, what do you guys think? what skills do you think that somebody would need to learn to offer to other people if the time came for that? Don't be afraid to throw a comment down there below. I'm actually asking you to throw a comment down below. Like, subscribe. Come on back and we're going to talk about some more of this stuff later on. I'll catch you later.